Good morning, everybody. How are y'all?
This is always so awkward in the beginning because I can't tell if people are on or not. Hi, Marilyn, you're on.
We're trying out new platforms, so we can't really see, but we can see when questions come in. So if y'all do have questions, start submitting. And we also had some come in over Instagram yesterday, and we can dive into those just while we wait for people to come in. Do y'all want to do that, Cal, Marilyn?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Marilyn. If you have it up, do it.
I do. Actually, I love this question. How and where do you store all your vegetables and fruits after you wash them? You just wait for like one of my favorite articles that I think we have published. It is so informative on storing fruits and vegetables to the point that I was editing it yesterday and I went into my main house and like rearranged some things that I just bought at the store because I just had forgotten or wasn't aware of like best storage practices. And this can make such a big difference. For me, it was my asparagus and I ended up turning them around, cutting the ends and putting the ends in water. But we're coming out with an article on this in the next week. So definitely stay tuned for that because there's lots of different things depending on what food item.
And there's lots of different ways to do it. I tend to a lot of times like just wash stuff right before I use it. But I know Allison, you like to do like a whole big sink full of wash. So
mainly because of juicing. And because my husband cooks a lot, but he doesn't like to wash the produce. And so it's one of our, it's a marriage thing. If it's washed, he'll cook it.
Sometimes it's convenient to wash when you come home from the store, and sometimes it just isn't.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think about activated carbon for detox?
I wonder if she's meaning like activated charcoal.
I think so.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that is used between meals and it mops up poisons. In fact, sometimes when someone is actually poisoned, activated charcoal is given in hospitals.
Like food poisoning too?
Yes, food poisoning.
I've done that with my husband. I take charcoal every morning upon arising because I'm detoxing from Lyme and I'm using the sauna every day. And so that's a good complement to each other.
You do it in between meals.
How much, Marilyn?
Well, there's nothing we can tell someone.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, is it something, you probably need to tailor versus
right.
And just take a bunch of charcoal.
That's right. And you have to, it's not something you do in excess because it can actually pull some of the minerals in the body. So you need to use it wisely. And, if you're working with a practitioner, they can help you more clearly how to do that.
Here's a question regarding food that we can bring on different opinions. My parents and in-laws like to give my 2-year-old sugary snacks. I've asked them not to. Should I just let it go? It just completely depends on your personality and how passionate you are about your child not having sugar. For me, no, I would not let that go. I wouldn't allow it. I would just kindly explain as much as I could. And if they didn't understand, I would just say, I'm so sorry. But this is something that, we're not going to be able to control her whole life, his or her whole life. But right now, we're trying to lay a foundation where we still, in a time where it still is a lot easier because it only gets harder. I have a 2- and a 4-year-old. And I would say something like, you may not agree with this or it may seem extreme to you, but it's something that it's important to us. And so I'm happy to provide alternatives, but that's not what I want my child to have. So I've had to navigate that sometimes. Kelly, Marilee, do y'all have something else?
Yeah, I think for me, it varies at depending on what age the kid, my kids are. As they've gotten older, and it also depends on the environment that we're in, because if it's just us, then yes, it's very easy to just be like, no, let's find something else or whatever, and they know how I feel. But if we are if we're at my parents' house, my mom is actually worse than my mother-in-law. and there's like a bunch of kids going around. And now that my daughter's like 4.5, I'm trying to help her, like, empower her to make choices on her own and see how she feels after and all that stuff. And so I'll let her like try some.
Yeah, but we're talking a 2-year-old. I mean, just to be clear for people listening.
Sorry, I missed that part of the question.
Yeah, she said 2.
All that to say, for other people, like, it's not, for me, it has changed as the age has changed. But when they're young, I'm like, I tell my parents and my in-laws, like, exactly what Allison said. It's like, no, they don't know the difference, and we don't need
the difference between 2 and 4, we both have them. I mean, or I have a 2 and a 4 and she has a 1 and a 4, is extreme. And for the 2-year-old, I'm kind of like, no, we don't need to do that. And the 4-year-old, I'm more in line with Kelly.
Yeah. Just like try a little bit but like Allison said, it's always basically as much as you can be prepared to have alternatives on hand. Yeah. That's the key.
Depends on the child's personality. I hate to put too much time into this question, but I know we are discussing food and this is a big thing. I'm so thankful. My 4-year-old, for instance, she was at ballet last week, and at the end of ballet, everyone got a sucker lollipop, and she just turned it back in and said, "I'm sorry, I don't eat refined sugar." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I literally traded it in for an eraser. But my child loves to eat and will eat anything, so she knew that we would have something when she got home and we had a date or we had whatever it was. But if she had been throwing this huge fit and it was this big deal to her, it depends on the child. So,
yeah, I agree.
Al, you're doing a great job. You can just keep being the moderator. And if anyone's on here watching live, we can't see y'all if you're on here, but be sure to comment in the chat so we can see your questions.
Let's see. Protein powder okay for toddlers or young kids? My 3.5-year-old loves smoothies and protein balls. Marilee can probably take this one better. I'll start off by saying like quality. Usually at that age, the protein should be coming from, real food sources. But if it's a protein powder, it's just really hard to find those without flavorings and excitotoxins and added ingredients. And so, Marilee, you can take that.
That's the key right here. We just need to read ingredient lists and understand what is real food, what isn't real food. And as you've got a child, they're growing, their brain is developing, they are, setting habits. If you read ingredients and you make sure there's no excitotoxins in there or other chemicals that can impact them, then yes. And we're trying to give you all information on reading labels for excitotoxins, for oils, inflammatory oils, or another ingredient that you want to look at in protein powders. And there are great products coming out every day. And it all depends on your ability or your knowledge of how to look at a label and go, okay, this is great, I'm going to buy it, or nope, this has canola oil, I'm going to put it back on the shelf because that's an inflammatory oil, it affects my child's brain development, etc.
Yeah. And kids often don't need as much protein sometimes as we think. We think, oh, let's fill them up with protein, but protein can be hard on the kidneys, having too much. So that's also something to consider. We have 2.
I did find, just for like one specific brand, I did just get a small packet at the store to try the Four Sigmatic unflavored protein powder. I think that was a good one.
Yeah. 2 different people asked about cow's milk. Should I drink it or should I drink an alternative? And then someone said, should I introduce cow's milk bottle at age 1? Marilee, we personally don't do cow's milk in this house, and we have, when we needed more calcium, we've done alternatives, and camel's milk is something that is most closely, mimics breast milk, and so that would be a good alternative for babies. But Marilee, do you want to add to that?
Well, I think that we have to go back to the principle that we're trying to convey, and that is all real food is good. All right, we're not going to tell you that this is bad or this is good if it's real food, but real food also has to be processed properly. So if you've got milk that's not organic, that's pasteurized, that's been treated, etc., you're going to be wanting to look for a high quality organic milk.
I was going to say, even organic milk, like is so different than having a source for raw milk, which is what Weston A. Price, they go on and on. Weston A. Price Foundation, if you want to look into that, Sally Fallon's work about nourishing tradition and foods, and just the enzymes and the benefits of having a source for raw milk. And I know several moms, especially homeschool communities, that share cows and do that. And that's completely different than buying pasteurized milk, on the store shelf. But personally, I don't think babies need cow's milk. I chose to do other milk alternatives.
Yeah, we don't really do milk either, except I will say we just got an ice cream maker, and we have been using some Maple Hill milk, organic milk.
Creamery.
Yeah. To test it out. My husband, I'm like, it's way better than the other that we're buying. So
Maple Hill, that's a good if you're going to do pasteurized milk, I feel like that would be one of the best ones.
It's 100% grass-fed organic milk. But yeah, we don't have, as far as I know, we might, but I don't know of any raw milk in Mississippi.
Yeah, we make almond milk, we make nut milk in our house all the time, probably 3 times a week. It's part of what I'm drinking right here.
Another point on milk is if you're going to drink milk, you want grass-fed, but also grass-finished, because if the cows are corn finished, then you're going to be getting GMOs, you're going to be getting, adulterated milk. So grass-fed, grass-finished is one of the things to look for.
Yeah. I don't know if people are asking questions currently, so I'm going to continue to go to the ones from yesterday. Kelly or Marilee, do y'all see anybody asking questions currently?
I don't.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, I'll take this next one because I just actually wrote an article on this. Someone asked if coffee is okay or is it inflammatory? Without going into like enormous detail, for us, the number one answer here is all goes back to quality. A lot of people think that the jitters or the kind of negative side effects of caffeine have to do with caffeine. But I would argue that a lot of that actually has to do with the quality of the coffee bean. And a lot of coffee contains mold. I was actually listening to a podcast on this just this morning on my walk. And I am coming out with an article, I think next week, that I wrote about my coffee routine. I personally have coffee every morning. And it can actually be beneficial for some people, especially the type A blood people, without going more into that. But some people, they don't do well on it. And I think it's about listening to your body. But it's, first and foremost, it's about the quality of the beans. I love Kion Coffee by Ben Greenfield, Kion. It's been the only one that I don't want to name other brands, but I've had a lot of other clean brands that have still given me jitters. So, yeah.
I've just never been a coffee drinker, so I don't know. I can't help there.
I also do a lot of coffee enemas, and I'm happy to talk to any of y'all about that because they've changed my life. So I put coffee in both ends. But that's just me.
Marilee's like horrified right now.
Oh, no, I learned it from Marilee. She can't.
No, I'm just kidding. I say that because Allison and I will just say anything, and Marilee is like much more reserved. Marilee can't.
That's actually how Lauren Scruggs and I do. That's how we're all friends with Lauren Scruggs, because I saw her post about coffee enemas 4 years ago on Instagram, and I'm like, "You're amazing! I love it. This is
thoughts on kombucha? I love kombucha. It's like my go-to drink for if I want something other than water, because I normally just drink water. And I did drink it. We always get a lot of questions while pregnant. I did drink some while pregnant, just not excessive amounts because of all the sugar. But Marilee, do you have anything to say?
Kombucha can be very medicinal. Years ago, I made my own with the big mushroom. It was way back there. But again, you want to look at ingredients, and some people do well with it. Some people with certain issues with the gut, they have a problem with it, causes bloating, etc. But as you heal the gut, etc., you're able to bring things like that back in. But kombucha is good.
How would you know, Marilee? Would you like if you did have like gut issues or something, would you feel bad after drinking kombucha? Or I'm just wondering like how people know if it's good for them or not.
Well, there's a whole gamut of symptoms that you might have if you have an issue with your gut. If someone has a problem with prebiotics, they have gut problems that don't digest, or the bad bacteria starts producing gas when you eat or drink these foods. So if you have any uncomfortable digestive symptoms afterwards, you might just check into seeing if you stop drinking, if that goes away. But it's a good food. It's a good drink.
Yeah. So someone said the weight of switching to organic healthy food versus what my mom cooked all my life is a shock.
Did you say it's a shock?
It's a shock, yeah. What I could say to that is it was a shock for me personally when I moved to Marilee's house in 2009 and learned about eating real food and cooking real food and what's involved in that. But I also felt my body respond and transform and heal. And I'm so thankful that I was able to learn that before I had children, because to me, it's like one of the greatest gifts that I can give them is an appreciation for food that's grown without chemicals and that they can enjoy and just reap kind of the benefits from using food as medicine, because that's really what it comes down to. So I guess like if I hadn't learned it until I was a mom, I would want to take that notion with me that it's, it is hard, but it's a sacrifice that is worth all the extra time and money because you're giving that to your children. And so they don't have to experience the shock that you're experiencing right now because they grew up in a home that eats real food and, when possible, and organic when possible. So it's kind of like breaking a generational path.
Well, and let me say, shock is a good word because your body is, for my situation, I was a foodaholic. I was a sugarholic. I ate more than anyone I knew. My mother called me the human garbage disposal. And I got to the point where I was told I'd never have children and that I was going to need a kidney transplant. Well, lo and behold, thankfully, I did not accept that. And I was led to a doctor in Boston who was using food as medicine. And the bottom line is, yes, I was shocked because within 10 days, I was off all medication. My whole life turned around. My cramps, not after 10 days, but in a month or so, no more cramps. I had excruciating cramps. Allergies were, disappearing. I've never been on a medication again, prescription or over the counter. And I can tell you what, after that happened, I was in shock. I sat down and I thought, how in the world can this country allow harmful chemicals to be put in our food that affect our mental, emotional, and physical well-being? I literally, I say this all the time. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to shout it. There was no internet. So I wanted to say, why didn't someone tell me? I missed so much school, missed out on a lot of things when all I had to do instead of eating all the junk food was eat the fruits and vegetables and the real food that, we should eat. So I'm going to encourage you to get excited about this idea of switching to real food, because that's what we're all about. Tossing the toxins in our pantry and our refrigerator is not about telling you that this food is bad and this food is good. It is helping you to determine what is real food, what is quality food, what are the micronutrient-rich foods that you can put in your body every day that will make you smarter, that will make you feel better, that will give you better, stamina, better sleep, better everything. We're looking at something that is so good. And you know what? All you have to do is change your buying habits. Everyone eats food.
Yeah.
So instead of eating, let's just say a synthetic scrambled egg, I'm going to go eat an organic egg from chickens that ate flaxseed, crickets, meal, etc., healthy foods, and therefore that's transferred to me. Anyway, yes, I could talk on and on about that. It is a shock. Your body's going to be shocked. It's going to go, oh my gosh, thank you. You're giving me the food I want. I was always hungry. I was always thinking about food. After I started eating real food, oh my God, I wasn't thinking about food anymore. I was satisfied. My body was saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. So.
Yeah.
Yep. It's an adjustment at first, but like Marilyn and Allison saying, just when you can remember the motivation behind it, it becomes easier and easier. And then it just becomes like a normal habit or whatever.
Yeah.
It's part of your lifestyle.
For sure.
We have a few questions on that are live. Y'all see those?
No.
Yes. I was going to say, Erica's asking about the blood type thing that I brought up. I was wondering if this was going to probably open up a can of worms, but I do think that Dr. Peter D'Adamo's work, Marilee introduced us to him years ago, is something that's at least worthy of attention. And basically, Marilee can speak more to this, but in working with thousands of people, like over the past few decades, she's definitely seen a correlation between eating specific foods that are most beneficial for your blood type, A, O, A, B. And so it's worth looking at those lists and seeing if, in fact, oh, wow, that's maybe why I don't do well with coffee or with cauliflower, with coconut oil. And it's a way to kind of target more of what could be helpful for you. I am blood type A personally. And when I eat the foods that are most beneficial for the A blood type, I do definitely feel a shift and a difference in my health and my energy. And I feel sluggish when I eat a lot of meats, which are not great for type A's. So something for people, kind of like a food for thought, no pun intended.
So his books are Live Right for Your Type and Eat Right for Your Blood Type.
Eat Right for Your Type. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the Live Right for Your Type book.
Yeah. He has an app. It's $3.99 and it's worth it. I have the app on my phone, and it's a great way to just, at the grocery store, you can make lists and stuff, but it's this Eat Right for Your Type right there. And it has amazing recipes and stuff. So it makes it really easy. It doesn't feel very restricting to me.
Well, let me clarify something too. For my people I work with, I do use blood type to help streamline people's recovery. There's a list that says this is a superfood for you, this is a neutral food, and this is a void for your blood type. And so you focus on the superfoods and the neutral foods during a time when you're trying to recover. But I always emphasize to people that food as medicine is using it for medicine, and that you don't do it every day. In other words, it's okay for you to eat some of the avoid foods, and when you become very healthy, you want to eat a varied diet. You just don't want to eat the same thing every day over and over again. I had one man contact me. He was very sick. He said he had spent all his money. He didn't have any money. He didn't know what to do. And I said, well, do you eat? And he started laughing. I said, well, then let me get this book, and I want you to choose the superfoods. It was very simple. He could just look at the meats, choose the ones that were superfoods, the vegetables, etc. It turned out he was a bachelor, and he was eating the same thing every day, and everything that he was eating over and over again was on his avoid list. In 3 weeks, he called me. He was out about. His whole life had changed just from that simple, variety in eating real foods that, were specific for his blood type.
That's amazing.
It's a great tool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, back to the kombucha, just real quick. If you have yeast overgrowth, if you know that you have yeast overgrowth, would you avoid that, Marilee?
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Until you recover.
And, oh no. Okay, wait. Healthy food for pets. Allison, I know you with your dog, you used to do something, but when we had a cat, I got the primal. I think it was primal something. Was it just primal?
Yeah.
It was like frozen raw, like nuggets that made it really easy.
It was all based on the barf diet, what I did and what you did, which is biological and raw food. So we ordered from Big Dog Natural. We still do BDN, and I think they're up in the Northeast, but it's freeze dried. So it arrives just room temperature, and then you reconstitute it with hot water. It sits in the bowl for a few minutes. Anyway, we've seen we have neighbors' dogs on it. It saved my parents' dog. It transformed the lab of my in-laws. So we've seen incredible things happen with it, and we really like it. Big Dog Natural. And then, yeah, Kelly's is, I think, primal, and you can get it in the frozen section of most pet stores.
Pets need real food too.
Yeah. Sorry, I was.
Yeah, all about real food.
I see a question that says, I've bought a lot of the cookbooks you recommend, but it takes me a lot of time and then it doesn't taste good, so I get discouraged. What I tell people is pick your favorite favorite recipes and change out. Like, for instance, if you're doing a spaghetti sauce and your spaghetti sauce that you usually use has sugar, citric acid, and other additives, just change it to one that is pure and good and substitute into your favorite recipes real food, and your recipes will be great. And then you can start getting used to some of these recipes and cookbooks. I mean, there are fabulous books. There's recipes on the internet. It's just getting used to it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the most kind of traditional American meals, or well, not just American, but not necessarily raw food or this or whatever, is the Defined Dish Cookbook. And I feel like it's more, so I don't know, that might be one to check out if you haven't yet.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that a lot from people that they say, oh, my husband or my dad doesn't really like healthy food. And so they end up doing the Defined Dish Cookbook. And it's basically like what Marilee's saying. It's like regular recipes that you probably grew up on, but just with good quality ingredients.
Yeah, I found that if I just Google something I'm craving, and then you can kind of Google the paleo version of that,
right,
or whatever it is, then that's sometimes easier. I mean, there's so many free recipes. Sometimes I wonder why I buy cookbooks, but I do love looking through them, flipping through them. I hate having to get out my phone when I'm cooking, so I'm a sucker for a good cookbook, and I love the stories in them and supporting, the people that are behind them.
Yep. I saw a question that we got on Instagram about collagen, and I was going to note that Mamavation has a really interesting, well-written article, in-depth article on collagen powder, and shares results from tests that were done on a bunch of different powder brands. I want to say BioOptimal, and I'm blanking on the other one, were some really good ones that tested really well. But look at the Mamavation collagen information for that. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
What are your favorite snacks? Someone said following the autoimmune protocol and really struggling with filling snacks. And Marilee, yeah, what are your favorite snacks?
I I try to do juice a lot in between meals.
Yeah. I am not much of a snacker, but I would eat some sort of whole food, a fruit, or some sort of juice.
Yeah. Hummus. I mean, this girl, she's saying AIP, so hummus is not on AIP. So AIP makes it a little bit harder, but you could definitely do juice and soups, and maybe treating snack, instead of thinking of it as a snack, it's more just like a smaller version of a meal. So whatever leftovers you have, heating those up, especially if you're able to do that and you're at home.
Now that the weather's starting to get warmer, I feel like it's easier to kind of just eat bell pepper slices or cucumber slices or whatever, things like that.
Yeah. I know AIP, can be hard because the protein isn't something that's just so easily accessible. Like it's usually meat based and so leftovers are kind of king.
Yeah, the more starch and the more non-starchy vegetables that you can eat, the micronutrient rich, colorful vegetables, variety and color, the more you add to your diet, the less you have hunger pains, etc. They just make all the difference. Your body's satisfied.
Right. Okay, Natalia, I love me some sweets too. Like some easy ones that I made the other day were date balls, like dates and almond butter, chia seeds, like ground up almonds and cacao powder. I think I got it from the Deliciously Ella book, but like that was really simple to make and just a great little, snack, sweet treat. I'm trying to think Allison, you're always baking good things. Your girls like sweet treats.
Yeah. Again, if I'm craving cookies or brownies, whatever it is, I usually just go for like the paleo version of that. Paleo seems to be like a good catch-all when Googling. And as long as things are organic and you're switching out refined sugar for things like coconut sugar and maybe monk fruit, if you do well with erythritol, and maple syrup is the main thing that we use to sweeten. There's just like an endless amount of recipes these days.
Right.
And I love to make muffins and I always make double or triple the batch and then I freeze things. So.
Yeah.
And I do the simple meal. I know they're not organic, but I do the simple meals sometimes, especially like if I'm, just don't have time to make something and need a healthy treat, a dessert or something. People coming over.
Let's see, would any of you consider going fully vegan to help with eating real food? What's your favorite dish to cook? I will say, this is a good example. Yes, when I changed my diet in order to avoid a kidney transplant, I did not eat meat or fish or anything for quite a while, and I recovered. On the other hand, you have people like Dr. Terry Walls, who has MS, and she fully recovered eating more of a paleo, more meat-centered. So you can go either way. Food is medicine. Some people go raw, completely raw. Some people will, go ketogenic. There's all variations. But
I listened to Terry Wall's podcast yesterday, actually, Marilee, and her whole story, which was incredible. If anyone wants to listen to her story, it's just amazing. From bedridden for 8 years to, doing everything. It's on the Bulletproof podcast with Dave Asprey. But I had to say, as I was listening, I thought, you are probably type O blood. I wanted to be able to reach through my phone and ask her because she just responded phenomenally. Whereas I know that some people who are A's and they go strictly paleo, they feel really good for a while. And then a lot of times they start feeling more sluggish and maybe not regular or things like that. So that is, I think, a good example of where we respond differently to different diets and it's not one size fits all.
That's right. And sometimes an O blood type can benefit by going all vegan because you're eliminating a lot of the hormones that they probably were eating in the meats, etc. And there'll be a period of time where they recover. And then again, like we said earlier, food as medicine is not meant to, you shouldn't keep a restricted diet forever. You want to think in terms of get healthy so you can eat a variety of, many different foods. So, but it's a great tool, either going into one of the medicinal diets, and if it fits you, it can change your life. But I'm about to say this, you can be paleo, gluten-free, vegan, but you can still be eating chemicals in your diet, which is what we're here to say. We want you to read labels. We want you to make sure that there's no excitotoxins, no additives, that you're eating organic, no GMOs, no inflammatory fats. And basically shopping the perimeter of the grocery store, where you have your produce, your meats, and your dairy. That's where you want to focus. And if you're going to go inside to the processed foods, pick up the box, read the label. They're good processed foods, but that's an important point. A lot of our problems can be completely eliminated if we would just get back to real food.
Yeah.
So that's foundational.
Yes, and definitely stay tuned. We do need to drop soon, but stay tuned for our content in March because it's really good. It's all about food. I mean, from coffee to food storage to oils, inflammatory oils, and of course, cleaning all the things that you're doing while you're making real food. But I think that some of the tips we're sharing could be really helpful for you guys.
I just see one that came up. It says, can you talk about the gums, like guar gum? Oh, yes, I can talk about it.
Uh-oh, you're luring Marilee back in.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about when we say we want you to be educated and know what real food is. When you look at a label and you're reading it and you see gums like guar gum, xanthan gum, those are excitotoxins. And these excite the brain, they affect the gut, they actually have been linked to obesity issues, all kinds of problems, especially neurodevelopmental mental issues with kids. So I highly recommend that you look at our information on excitotoxins, and which explains about gums, etc. We are with our diets or our conventional foods with pesticides. Every time you eat, the pesticides are like antibiotics. They are killing your good bacteria. And our microbiome is so important. And there's just changing to all organic can make such a difference. And they have done tests where you go 3 days without any food that has been pesticided, and the urine levels of pesticides are dropping like 70 to 90%, really fast. And so, I mean, think about the fact that if someone can avoid a kidney transplant, moving from conventional diet to all real food, and that change in 10 days was so dramatic, I'm telling you, we don't realize how much these chemicals and these foods, these non-foods are impacting us. We don't realize it till we get them out of our diet. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the hardest part is like you look at you find a food and you're like, it's all good ingredients except for this one thing, and it's like, oh, like it's so annoying. And that combined with not realizing, like Marilee said, like, because you can't necessarily see a direct cause and effect, immediately. I get that it's like it can be really hard, but I mean, Marilee, I know you've had so many incredible stories with clients where just from removing excitotoxins, they like had years of health issues go away. So it's definitely worth, especially if you're trying to heal, it's definitely worth something being very, adamant about.
Adamant, especially for children. And I think, especially for children, that's in truth, American adults, the whole population, there's more depression. There's so many issues that we're having from just these chemicals in our diets. And if we could just stop buying them, guess what? The companies would listen and they would give us good quality. There's a wonderful person named Food Babe, and she started investigating how one of the food manufacturers here would make macaroni and cheese for America full of these excitotoxins. And in Europe, they made a completely different product with none of them. Why? Because the Europeans don't want those chemicals. And so if we will stop saying no to these products, we're going to get better food for our children and for our families.
Start saying no.
Did I say? I said stop.
Stop saying no.
Start, yes.
Yeah, even just start reaching out to the companies, like even just DM them. simple, quick DM on Instagram just to say, hey, point it out to them, just to bring it into their awareness that more and more people are caring about this stuff.
Yeah. Yes, I will say I made a call to a company that everything was beautiful. Their presentation, they were selling a product for the gut. And on the internet, it looked good. And I happened to see a label of the actual product, and I could not believe it. They had about 4 excitotoxins in there. They make you want them. They addict you. They are flavors, etc. And I called them and I said, "You're trying to heal people's guts, and yet this is what's in them." We're also confused. We have to be educated so we can help straighten this out.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, thank y'all so much for getting on, and y'all know y'all can always email us and Instagram message us, and we will try and point you in the right direction if we don't, have a blog post already written about it or something like that. So,
yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. See you all next time.